Okay, we all here? No. Any more questions before we do a little 3-minute meditation? Yes, darling, go.
One more.
Yes.
Can an ant, because it's got a mind,
That's right.
enlightenment this lifetime?
We'll talk about that. Okay. Exactly. We'll talk about that. So, yes.
You mentioned when we come in, we are fully programmed.
Yep, that's right.
Does that mean fully programmed in the potential or fully programmed in the delusion consciousness?
The potential's always there in your mind, but you're programmed with whatever qualities, with your characteristics that are your personality in this life, and they're programmed with the karmic seeds that will determine who you meet and the thing that will happen to you in this life, and what you'll do, whether you'll be accused of being a murderer, whether you'll get loved or hated or kissed or rich or poor or fat or thin or healthy or unhealthy, whatever. All of our experiences are the fruit of past actions. It's just the karmic, it's just a law, Buddha says, it's just how things work. And we're going to go into this. We'll talk about it. So, okay, let's just be very natural, close your eyes, and we'll do a little 3-minute sort of looking at our minds. Just don't get all holy because you think it's called meditation, you know. The whole day's meditation, all right?
Aren't we all Catholics?
That's right. So just close your eyes. And the reason you close your eyes is not something unholy about having your eyes closed. It's because it prevents you being distracted by the visual objects. And then the reason you sit quietly, ideally, is so you don't get distracted by sound. And the reason you try to keep your body quiet is so you don't get distracted by the tactile objects. It's just sort of reasonable. Because the simple fact of the matter is your body doesn't think, your body doesn't meditate, your body distracts us because we get caught up in all the sensory objects. And so what we've got to develop is the skill to know our mental consciousness very well, which means our thoughts and feelings and emotions and all this stuff. So it's just practical to have a quiet spot, to sit quietly, you know, so you can learn to focus your mind. Because if you don't focus your mind, it's all over the place, isn't it? Like it is every single day. We're trying to harness that crazy energy. So that's for 2 or 3 minutes, quality minutes. What we're going to do is just have your eyes closed, your body straight. So just check your body. Okay, we'll discuss the body first. Get it in the most conducive position. There are about 6 or 7 points, 7 or 8 points. The first is your back, and this is the main one. So if you're sitting in a chair, don't slump into the back of the chair. Have your feet firmly planted on the ground, and you hold your own body up. Because this is the crucial thing, that we can see that when your body slumps, your mind becomes sluggish and you go off to sleep, don't you? So your body's got to be very upright. They say that your spine is like an arrow, absolutely straight. And the head of the arrow is the coccyx, pointing directly into the earth. So just imagine that, visualize that. And then so have your back very straight. But they don't say it like this, but this is how I say it to myself. It's quite helpful. You know, because they say that you should have your shoulders relaxed, your muscles relaxed. But often what happens is we either have tension in the muscles, and we hold everything tight, which is really not good. And then we relax too much, and we go off to sleep, you know. So we've got to get this balance between slumping and being upright. So I think of it like this. Your bones, absolutely upright. But your muscles, your fat, your flesh, just let them flop. And let them hang on the bones, but have your bones absolutely upright. That's why your back, think of the spine like an arrow. Because if your back's straight, everything comes into alignment, you know. Shoulders relaxed, but upright. Your back, the muscles. But they don't say this either, but you look, our abdomen, we're always squeezing the muscles there because we don't like to look fat, you know. Relax the muscles. Relax your shoulders, but upright. Your legs best, they say, to be in full lotus position. It's found to be very, very conducive for the body to be super upright and super stable and not slumping, especially if you're a long-term meditator. But if we can't do this, that's fine. One leg up in the instep on the other thigh. If not that, then ordinary cross-legged. And if not that, indeed, in a chair, whatever works, you know. There's nothing innately good or bad about sitting cross-legged. Don't get all, you know, we tend to think meditation is this image of a person with their eyes closed and their legs crossed. And it's just completely ridiculous. I mean, you can be thinking about killing somebody with your eyes closed and your legs crossed. It's hardly meditation. Okay, so now your hands ideally, but you know, people all vary this. This is the one way we have, is you left underneath, right on top like this, thumbs touching, forming a triangle. And there's something significant about all of this. In the subtler physical levels of physical energy, they talk about two particular channels that kind of meet at thumb point. Just like that in your lap. Arms not constricted. Then, your head. Often we hold it, we're thrust back like that. Makes the mind agitated. Have it forward, bit forward. Chin tucked in. Your jaw relaxed. Lips slightly apart. And the tip of the tongue behind the top teeth. It's a bit odd, we wouldn't normally put it there, but it's quite helpful. Just behind the top teeth near the palate. Prevents you from dribbling too much and having to swallow spit a lot. Breathe through your nose, very naturally. And your eyes, finally. All the meditators, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama, they say, have your eyes open. Sometimes you've seen pictures of His Holiness being photographed or videoed while he's meditating, and his eyes are open. Because when you've got very good focus, and that means you've gone to a subtler level of your cognition, which is not conceptual or sensory, and we're going to discuss that, then you're not distracted by the sensory because, you know, you're focused internally, which is for most of us not the way it is. So if you'd like, you know, have your eyes lightly closed. But your eyes, beneath your eyelids, should be looking down, as if you're looking along your nose towards the ground. So that's the position. Now just settle into this position now, please, and be very unself-conscious about it. Don't get all holy, oh, I'm meditating, look at me, you know. Just relax. What we're going to do, like I said, for 3 minutes, is just get a feeling for our mind, our awareness, Because you think about it, you have two things. You have your mind, your cognition, your awareness, and then you have the objects of that awareness. The objects through the senses, the eye, the objects, the ear, the various senses. And then, of course, is your mental consciousness, you know, all the stuff that you're thinking about. So using your senses as a basis, this is a good one. Using your ears, okay, ear consciousness. Because your eyes are closed, so you haven't any visual objects, but you've got ears. And you can hear sounds. One is my voice. Might be a bird outside, not too many sounds. There could be the sounds of motors maybe, you know. Now normally what happens, you check, as soon as there's a sound, our mind is like runs like a magnet to the sound, like they're just there, someone coughing. The mind will run to the object and we'll kind of hook onto it. And then we'll go on in our mind about the object, you know. And so if you're sitting there trying to be calm, as we think, then a noise occurs and your mind runs like a magnet and then you get annoyed with it, you know. We can't resist the objects. We run to them. And that's the nature of all the delusions. They run to the objects. And we get caught up in the object. So if there's lots of loud noises, our mind is obsessed with those noises, then we get upset and distressed, you know. But it's just an interpretation, that's all. So what we're trying to train our minds to do, and using sound, ear consciousness as a basis, the objects of ear consciousness, the sounds out there, don't have your mind go to the object. Try to have your awareness observing the awareness itself. So you've got the object and you've got the subject, which is the awareness itself. So keep your mind on the awareness. Even if you're puzzled by it, it doesn't matter. Get a sense of what that means. Just focus on the awareness, your mind. That's it. If you want to visualize it, imagine it, you know, it's just an idea. As a very big kind of like a sky, spacious, clear, spacious, big, clear, steady, calm, pure awareness. Just imagine this for 2 or 3 minutes. Slowly relax now. So probably what happened for most of us in that 3 minutes was we spaced out. Just kind of this vaguely dull feeling, you know. And that isn't meditation, that's just called spacing out. So it's hard, you can see though, because we have this idea of our mind, we have the idea that it's all the thoughts, the feelings, the brain, you know, we have these ideas. But to become familiar with the awareness itself is quite a tricky thing, isn't it? It's quite puzzling, in fact. So it's just helpful to try, that's all. And it's helpful because you think, one of the advantages of doing this is that when you do in the ordinary daily life, walking around, and you'll see how your mind runs to the object, the sound, the sight. Your mind is out there all the time, magnetised by all the objects. Totally, your mind, it's like running and absorbing into it. And then you make up a big story about it. It's ugly, it's nice, it's not nice, and no wonder you're exhausted by the end of the day. All these opinions, you know. Do you understand? We're totally distracted, totally caught up in the outside events. We have no power to keep our mind steady just in itself, relaxing, let the thing, it's sort of like letting everything go by, you know, without having to run off and have an opinion about it. We spend our lives butting our noses into everybody else's opinion, everybody else's world, the world out there, thinking just because it comes in front of us, we have to have an opinion about it. It's fascinating. No wonder we're exhausted. Angry thoughts, attached thoughts, you know, jealous ones, always having an opinion. We can't leave things alone. So doing this, just for a few minutes, minding your own business for a few minutes, trying to focus on what this mind of yours is, you know, leave people alone for a few minutes, they'll thank you. So it helps. And then, you know, when you can start to keep steady in your mind, then stuff can go by you. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. It doesn't mean you become indifferent. But you can be on the freeway and all the cars and all the noise. You don't get distracted. You stay where you are in your car, out behind the wheel, driving your car. You know, but because we're all overexcited and nervous and worried and anxious and annoyed over here and angry about that one and worried about this one, I mean, you're exhausted. No wonder, of course. That's what we call stress. So again, of course, because we believe the car caused it, what can I do? I'm just the victim, you know. Cars make you stressful, we think. So we want to run off and live in the trees, you know. But if you can keep your mind steady, it's up to you, then cars won't distract you. Driving is a good example of how to get concentration. You'd be happy to be on the freeway. Get focus, you know. And it's up to us. So even something like this, just for a few minutes, begin to get the feeling, begin to understand. There is an object, and then there's your mind, and they're two separate phenomena. You can be the boss, you know. So, okay, so far, what we've been saying. One point, starting point, if you like, for all of this, is Buddha's assertion that we've all got the potential, and this is the third noble truth, Buddha's assertion that every sentient being, every mind possessor, every Sem Chen in Tibetan mind possessor, innately possesses the potential, just by virtue of being a mind possessor, possesses the potential to be fully developed in the positive qualities and free of the negative ones. Another simple way to say it, as he says it there, is free of suffering. This is the potential of all beings, Buddha says. And that potential, is a simple way to put it, that potential is what finally defines us. In the simplest way, like saying, what is an acorn? It's a potential oak tree. That's what defines it. It's just a way of talking, and we can get that idea. The concept is clear to us. That an acorn isn't just what it appears to be, a little circular thing with a hat on it. That is what it is in a conventional sense, isn't it? This little thing, whatever that shape is. I never know what that shape is called. What's that shape called, please? Who? No, what's the shape called? It's not round, it's not oblong, what is it? Who? Conical. A cone. Isn't a cone pointy? Is it? Okay, let's call it a conical shape. So this is I always bring this example, but it's a really important point. Think about it. If you never heard that an acorn is a seed for an oak tree, then when you look at it, you'd see it on face value, wouldn't it? The little cone, little conical thing with a hat on it. You'd say that, wouldn't you? You'd agree, wouldn't you? An acorn, little thing. There it is. And that's it. You wouldn't, it's not evident. There's no little secret sign saying, I'm really a potential oak tree, is there? With a little picture of its future potential sitting on there for you to see it. You don't know it unless you're told. Would you agree with that? And that's reasonable, isn't it? But when you learn, you know, botany, you discover that if you plant it and give it water and soil and lots of sunshine and time, it will manifest, it will transform into this great big huge oak tree. Now we understand that, it's called the law of botany, you know. We know there's a tiny seed, you go to the shop, you get all excited, and you just told me you want a bunch of carrots and you come home with a bunch of seeds, and I'll go, what are you talking about? It's not a carrot. Oh, it's okay, Robina, it's a potential carrot, I'm going to grow them. Then I'll go, oh, that's good. So we understand this idea of seeds and fruits, don't we? We get it. But you've got to learn it, don't you? It's not evident. If you see a carrot seed, you won't visualise a carrot all of a sudden. You've got to learn it in botany. So, okay, there's a thing that it appears to be what it is now, and then you learn that it's a seed for a future something. It's a good example. They always use this analogy in Buddhism. So if you look at the status quo now, what are you? And we would give a description. Well, I'm this kind of Australian woman, you know, Buddhist, nun, some anger, some jealousy, a little bit of this. We give a little kind of overview of our personality. We describe who we are now, right? Well, you are that. I am that. You can't say I'm not. I'm not American. Well, actually, I'm American now. I am American now. I've got a passport. But yet when I became an American, they told me I have to have allegiance to America. I have to give up all princes and other princes and potentates. I'm allowed to have another passport, but I've got to have allegiance to America. So I said, okay. And I had to vow, I had to bear arms. So I bear arms, look. I bear my arms every day. I told the woman, I said, I'm happy. I promise, I said, I promise I will do whatever it takes to benefit the people of the United States. And she took it as a yes. That I would indeed bear arms. So anyway, yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, I am an Australian Buddhist nun. I'm also an American. So that is what I am. You can see it's a fact, isn't it? We are what we are. We are this, we're 7, we're 9, we're something. And we write it down, and that's what we are. It's true. But all Buddha's saying is, that's great, Robina, but it ain't who you really are finally. It's just like if you're you know, your first week of cycling. You are a cyclist, but you're only in grade 1. We understand this. And you know you can, you know, using this as an analogy, you can turn into the Lance Armstrong. You are a potential Lance Armstrong. We understand this idea vividly and well. This idea of progression, you know, being small, grade 1, going to grade 2. So you can, you know, let's say the musicians saw little boy Mozart, little Wolfgang when he was a little boy, and just because they're skillful musicians, they noticed he had all this potential. He sure wasn't a musician then. But they could see, because they were skillful, that he had potential. So there's this, and so we understand this idea of having some potential to be something, and then you do the job of developing it. We understand this unbelievably well. This is what gives us the courage to become cyclists and musicians and scientists and Lord knows what. So all Buddha's talking about is that idea, that principle, but he's talking about the mental qualities, the emotional qualities. That's all. Simple. So we know we don't have courses. We have courses on how to become Lance Armstrongs and how to become, you know, how to become musicians and scientists and all those most amazing things on this earth. We've got amazing courses that help us do this, to help us develop that part of our potential. Help us turn our acorn into an oak tree. We understand that. But I don't think there are many courses around, are there, that say how to become fully developed in love, how to become completely free of anger, how to become totally, you know, we don't have things like this because we just don't think it's possible. So then, of course, we don't have courses on it. And then the trouble is with that is, it's sort of like because you're 6 and you can't ride a bike, and that's the status quo, you forever think, I am a non-bike rider. Look at me. I'm a non-bike rider. Look at me. I can't ride a bike. This is who I am. Look, I'm 6. I can't ride a bike. This is who I am. And then when you're 7, look at, this is who I am. I can't ride a bike. I can't ride a bike. This is who I am. When I'm 8, and then when I'm 20, look at me. I can't ride a bike. Well, something's got to change, isn't it? You've got to decide at some point you indeed can't ride a bike. But guess what? If you start to think you've got the potential to ride a bike, everything opens, doesn't it? It's not rocket science, this attitude. But this is how we think when it comes to our personalities. So we reinforce this by saying, look, this is who I am. I was born this way. It's all natural. This is just how we are. It's just natural when you're 6 not to ride a bike. It's just natural to be angry and jealous and depressed. And it's physical as well. And also, it's not my fault. So we have all these views that reinforce, this is who I am, the status quo. I am an acorn. So every day we polish ourselves and change our hats and try to be the nicest acorn possible. But you're not an acorn. You are. But what defines an acorn is its potential oak treeness. This is not a rocket science. But this is the view. This is what we're talking here. So Buddha says, mind, your consciousness, is what it is now. Yep, surely is. Bit of anger, bit of jealousy, bit of depression, panic, anxiety, fears, small, miserable, can't do. Yep. And look at us. Look at us. We reinforce that one every day. This is who I am, we say. Isn't this true? Well, guess what, people? You can change. It's so simple. It's embarrassing. But we don't think so in our materialist world. And if we do think we can, it's a bit hit and miss. And if we do think we can change, we think it's dependent upon getting the nice cake and the nice person. Then I'll change. I'm prepared to be happy when you do what I want, please. Sure, I know I can change from suffering to happiness, but it depends upon getting a cake. No, Buddha says you can change in spite of the cake, because the mind has its flexibility. The mind is plastic, absolutely. You can change your mind. You can change your mind. You can change your mind yourself without depending upon a cake. Whether or not someone punches you, you can change your mind. That's all he's saying. It is not complicated intellectually to hear it. But it's unreally liberating to hear it. It's scary as hell. So look at this one of who we think we are, because this is already fascinating. Okay, Buddha's saying finally, who we really are is a Buddha, fully developed in perfect in all the good qualities and completely free of the negative. It isn't who we are yet. It's obvious. Try to get shade from an acorn, you'll be disappointed. But it's so tasty once you realise what you can do with an acorn, that it possesses this potential. It's so tasty to remember that. Otherwise you won't do anything about it. So it's so important to remember your potential. Have the vision of your potential in front of you. That's what makes you want to get up every day and ride your bike. Instead of waking up and feeling all the miserable pain and I can't stand it, and who wants to be a bike rider? You just have to remember what it's like to be a bike rider and have your vision of Lance Armstrong, and you get the courage to go beyond the pain. In other words, instead of identifying with the status quo, I can't do it, I'm hopeless, I can't ride a bike, you identify with your potential. It's not rocket science, but this is just the way of saying it. It's very, very powerful. So anybody in this life who really has this who is learning to be something in your own life, you can see it. Once you know what you want to become, once you know what your potential is, the future you, and you have a vision of it, you hold it there, that's what makes you get up every morning to become it. It's just really obvious, and that's what gives you the courage. So as long as you don't think you can change and even become a little bit better, as long as you really believe that your inability to change is who you are and it's everybody else's fault, which reinforces your inability to change, then of course you will stay right where you are. I'm 6 and I can't do it. When you're 17, I'm 6 and I can't do it. No wonder. We're all emotional, like 3-year-olds still. That's how we think, So finally, if you really want to think even in a conventional sense, who am I really? It comes down to being your mind. Because the one thing that is constant is your mind. That Buddha would say it's beginningless and endless. Okay, you've got to think about that one. This continuity of this linear river of mental moments, speaking conventionally. This moment coming from the previous, which comes from the previous, which comes from the previous. You keep tracking it back. Go back mentally, before the second before conception. The moment before my mind was the cause of this previous moment. The moment before that was the cause of this present one. The moment before that was the cause of this present one. You keep going back, tracking. You can't find a first moment. You can't find a causeless cause. And you keep moving forward. The momentum of the mind goes forward. So if you can think of, even in a conventional sense, what's, what's the substance of you that is finally the real you, well, you can say it's your mind. You can say it's your mind. It's not my Australianness, or my femaleness, or my humanity even. It's not those things, which are the ways we define ourselves now. It's kind of interesting how we define ourselves. I am, this or that. And then we can have particular parts. The fundamental one we can see is the male and female. We could even go right down to the bare bones, and this is the Christian one. It's the humanity. That's the one. You don't say it's but the Buddha would go even deeper and say it's your sem-chen-ness, your mindness, your mind, because an ant has that too. Whereas if you say it's the human one, which has the soul, that doesn't include the ants. And Christians would say that God made those creatures for our benefit, because they don't have souls. We have this potential, they don't. Buddha would disagree. He says all minds have the same potential. So, what finally defines us, conventionally speaking, in terms of the substance of us, is our mind. Your nose doesn't experience anger. Your eyelashes don't have potential to be patient. It's not your toenails that get depressed. Your body is just this vehicle, this lump of stuff that our mind occupies. You can say like that. So, in Tantra, in the esoteric teachings, like in postgraduate, these very interesting explanations of this intimate relationship between mind and body. So obviously this is not at all talking in materialist terms. It's talking very much like the scientists back in the medieval times in Europe talked. Earth, air, fire, water is the components of the physical world. I remember reading recently about Galileo, and he talked in terms of earth, air, fire, water. That's how they talked. Well, the same as the Tibetan model is still that. The Buddhist model is, they talk in those terms. The physical components of the universe is earth, air, fire, water. So basically the universe is made up of two phenomena, mind and matter. Well, there's other, but never mind. That's kind of like things like time, things that aren't physical and aren't mental, but is like still existing, like time is a phenomenon, isn't it? Time. The passing of time, we call it that. You can say that's not physical and it's not mental. So forget those phenomena. You've got body and mind, okay? The world is made up of the physical matter, earth, air, fire, water. Well, if you think about it, so is this. This is just the same as the rocks and the mountains, except it's a different, recipe of the elements, isn't it? It's exactly the same as the table. There's no difference. Earth, air, fire, water. Earth, air, fire, water. The difference between this bit of earth, air, fire, water and this one is that this is the body of a consciousness. It's the home of a consciousness. It's the part of this person called Robina. It's imbued with a consciousness. This table is not imbued with it's not the body of a consciousness. It doesn't mean there aren't consciousnesses living there. Buddhism would say there's not an atom of space where you won't find consciousnesses, minds. Under your armpit is like a zoo. In your gut, your mouth, in the air. When they talk about all those mites and the dirt and the dust in your mattresses and those things, usually the creeps, Sentient beings are pervading the universe. There's not an atom of space where you won't find minds. So that's already a fascinating concept. Sentient beings, all of whom have the potential that you have. Then the Buddha would say that they all take these different. They've all got these different. There's different ways in which these sentient beings manifest in a physical form. Because there is this intimate relationship, according to this model I'm about to describe in the esoteric teachings, there's this intimate relationship between mind and body. So you've got, every mind, we've got, in general they talk about we've got gross consciousness, or mind, and that is inextricably linked with the presence of gross physicality, gross body. Here's an example. It's like we talked. You can't, you know, the person talking about the bits of your brain missing, we'll discuss this. The brain, we can see, plays a role in enabling the conceptual mind to function. The brain and the nervous system play a role in enabling our mind and our thoughts and our emotions to kind of come out coherent. We can see this. The presence of my hand clearly enables my tactile consciousness to experience something when I touch the microphone. So clearly, the gross physical body is a crucial condition for the functioning of my gross consciousness, which is what we think we are in the West. That's all. Concepts and concepts and sensory. But in Buddhist terms, it's the tip of the iceberg. Conceptuality, which includes, interestingly, emotions, and we're going to get to this. All the emotions come down to thoughts, like we've already described about attachment and aversion. I'm going to go into this. Conceptual includes emotions, okay? And we have conceptual and we have sensory. And the way we function in day-to-day life as a human being, which is all we think there is in the West, we can see the concepts are pretty limited in their capacity for cognition, aren't they? I mean, we talk about not remembering a past life as if it's some valid reason for there not being one. Well, I beg your pardon. You can't remember most of today and it's only noon. That's a fact. Because in Buddha's terms, conceptuality doesn't have the capacity for that level of cognition. So we just assume in the West that you don't have it, period, because that's all we think there is. Whereas Buddha would say we have subtler levels. So then he talks about how we have subtle consciousness, which is a more refined, more powerful, subtler level of cognition. So the only time we access that is when we dream. And it's weirdo time, isn't it, when we dream? It doesn't fit with the physical model, the way we talk in the West. So we don't know how to quite make of the dreams, you know. In Buddhist terms, we have this capacity for cognition at a subtler level. They call it subtle consciousness, which comes along to inextricably linked with a certain level of physicality. And that's what they call in yoga and the Tibetan medical system and Tantra, the subtle channels, you know, the Kundalini energy, the wind energy, the prana. This is a real kind of, you know, entire kind of presentation, you know, the way they talk. And there they talk about mind having an intimate relationship with the different wind energies. So this is why I said when your Tibetan doctor feels your pulses, he can feel the imbalance of these, you know, your Chinese doctors talk like this too. They feel all these different pulses, they can feel the different energies, physical energies. And your mind is linked to those at a subtler level. This is how they talk. So the only time, like I said, we access that part of our minds and we dream, right? Well, through utilising Buddha's very skillful psychological techniques called concentration meditation, which have been around for thousands of years, he took them from the Hindus, we can learn rigorously and precisely to access these subtler levels of cognition, which basically are fast asleep for most of us right now. Occasionally some of us have a quick flash of some insight into a person's mind, a moment of clairvoyance, this kind of thing, and we just think of it in its nature as being a flash. But it's every now and again you kind of open the eye of your subtler mind and it kind of closes again. You just see it kind of, oh, you grabbed it and it's gone again. But through utilising these concentration techniques, you can go to that level of mental cognition, which is more refined and more powerful, which does not depend upon a body for its existence, and which is necessarily beyond the conceptual and beyond the sensory. No such thing exists as far as the Western model is concerned. At that level, you have far more power for cognition, and it has the capacity for what we call clairvoyance. Not as some kind of vague flash, oh my gosh, I was an Egyptian princess 22 lives ago. In a clear, precise way, that level of cognition, that level of consciousness has the capacity to see phenomena that are not able to be cognised by the gross level. Past, future, long distances, minds of others. This is part of it. This is what the mind can do, Buddha says. So once we've accessed this subtle level of mind and have accomplished what they call single point of concentration, your mind already is astonishingly capable. This is how it is. This is the Buddha's model. It's been around. They talk like this for thousands of years. The Hindus talk like this. It's ancient stuff, this. Been around for a long time. Because they didn't use the word psychology. I mean, it's Greek, my dear. They talked Hindi there and Pali and all the rest. We just coined that term, didn't we, in our culture? But all Buddha deals with is the mind, so therefore it is psychology. It's just that he's got a very radical view of how the mind works, that's all. Different view. But then that's not even enough. We've got very subtle consciousness now. And we never access that virtually. But that is what finally everything subsumes down to when we die. Every time we sleep, the same. The mind, in dependence upon the different levels of physicality, ceases to function, absorbs inwards, and so the level of physicality ceases too. Like when you're fast asleep and your gross consciousness has ceased, someone touches you, you don't have a tactile experience. They speak, you don't have an ear experience because that part of your mind has ceased temporarily functioning because the physical part of you is absorbed. They talk about that ceased, you know? Well, that's what happens every time you go to sleep. And it's what happens every time you die. But the death one is more radical because when you wake up in another body, according to Buddha. When you're asleep, you wake up in the same body. So they talk in terms, and this is what happens, they describe the death process in detail. I think it's in those notes you might have, and we can talk about this. You know, it's a gradual process of dissolving this package. And this is getting to the point of who am I, you know? Who am I? How do I define myself? What's the bottom line? So by the time you stopped breathing, already the four elements have ceased. The earth element, which is what gives the weight and the strength to your body. The eye consciousness, the ear consciousness, the taste consciousness, and the physical base for these have all ceased. The elements have ceased. So by the time you stop breathing, in our terms, you're ready for the body bag, but you ain't dead yet. It's just the gross level of your conscious and physical energy that has now ceased. In other words, the Robina as we know her has finished. Like Humpty Dumpty, she's fallen off a wall. Nothing left. Gone. But the imprints of every single thing she said, did and thought, and from past lives as well, is all there in her consciousness, in the very subtle consciousness. Because by the time you go through death is described in 8 stages. The 4th stage, the gross level has ceased. You go through the subtle stage, and then finally you get to the subtlest consciousness. They call it very subtle consciousness. And that's inextricably linked also with a very subtle physical energy called wind energy. And wind energy is the basis of the 4 elements. They call this indestructible consciousness. And it's inextricably linked with this very subtle wind energy, so that's also indestructible. And you can't separate these two. And they're the building blocks for the next person, the next package, the next building, you know. And this very subtle consciousness, known as indestructible consciousness or clear light consciousness, you can say it's like the repository of all the karmic imprints. It's like the programming, all the programs of everything you've ever said, done and thought. Everything gets programmed. Everything you do, say and think keeps developing those programs in you. The angry program, and the attached program, and the jealous program, and the intelligent one, and the kind one, and the this one, and the that one. And then depending on the karma, the seeds that ripen at the time of your death, this highly complex coming together of a bunch of your programming, whichever ones are most prevalent, then that determines the next person, the next womb you go to, and the personality that goes with that. All our own programming. We're the creators of ourselves. No one puts it in there. No one made you. It's a very different view, actually. Because if you're a materialist, you think your mummy created you. If you're religious, you think God created you. It's always someone else did it to you. In Buddhist terms, no. You make yourself. In the sense that you're a musician because you practiced hard for 10 years. You made yourself a musician. There's nothing special about that. We understand that. Well, if you're kind, you've made yourself kind by being kind. If you're angry, you've made yourself angry by being angry. Sure, people punch you in the nose. Yeah, sure, people teach you how to play piano. They're just the catalysts. The potential, the qualities are yours. So then finally, at the time of death, and you've you've deconstructed, thrown off all the gross level, the subtle, all the personality traits of Robina have finished, the packaging, the body, the life of that person, all her politics and her music and her this, all the stuff that is this big bubble called my life, gone like a dream, finished, finished, finished. What's left is consciousness. Pure, this subtle consciousness, not pure, subtle consciousness, which is linked inextricably indeed with this wind energy. These are the building blocks. So as Lama Yeshe said one time, at that point, there is the potential for heaven or hell, meaning happiness or suffering, depending on what you've done, depending on your programming, depending on the karmic seeds you've planted. right? So this consciousness. So if we get down to this, then at least you can say the bottom line in a conventional sense is mind. Okay, the wind energy too, but mind. It's indestructible, it's beginningless, and it's endless. Your nose is not the final one, it's just a temporary package, isn't it? So who am I really? I am Australian. I am a nun. I am a woman. I am 5 feet tall. I am good at this. You can say these relative truths, but they're just a passing thing. It's like saying I am 63. It won't last long. I'll be 64 soon. Things change. So relatively speaking, we are who we are. We've got to look at the status exactly. There is anger, there's this, there's that. That is the status. But then you've got to see what's my potential. You've got to, otherwise you can't move an inch, even a fraction of an inch, even a millimetre, you can't move. So the thing is, we take who we are, it's truth, and then what we do, what delusions do is it holds on to it and says, that's who I am. Frozen in space. We get stuck in that one. This is how ego works. We freeze that one in space. So in this life, we take a different we take different aspects to grasp onto and say that's me. So recently in North Carolina, I was talking to a person who was a white nationalist. He defines himself in terms of his white race. I've met people who define themselves in terms of their black race. People who define themselves in terms of their sex. When I was a radical feminist, I defined myself mainly in terms of my femaleness. So we all take a different part of ourselves. If a person's a fanatic Australian, that's the bottom line for them. And then you take that piece and you define yourself as that, don't you? If you're a fanatic musician or an ice skater, you take one thing and you say, that's me, that defines me. That's what we do, isn't it? So we better find out what the one is if we're going to define ourselves by it. So if you define yourself as a human being, you'll be in big trouble when you die, because you'll turn into a dog. You might. So where's the humanness gone? Finished, sorry. If you define yourself in terms of being a good fisherman, you will be sorry. You're going to get real suffering life in the future. You're going to be something else completely. You probably turn into a fish. I mean, we're going to talk about karma, okay? If you define yourself in terms of being a female, thinking that's the permanent part of you, well, it isn't. Because by the time of very subtle consciousness, there's no male, female, good, up, down, good, bad, lion, human, or anything else. There's a potential for any one of those, depending on the programming you've done. So we better make some, in other words, we need to make some decisions then about who am I and what is my potential and what do I want to define myself as? What do I want to become? What is it? Which part of me is the part that I want to grow? It's a reasonable question. Given that at the moment I am this or that. Yes, I'm a female. Yes, I'm this. Yes, I'm that. You might define yourself being in terms of being a lesbian or a gay man or whatever it is. But if we over-exaggerate that one, which is what ego does, and takes it and says, that's really who I am, well, then it's like saying, I am an acorn, and what's defined me? I am an acorn. It is my nature to be an acorn. You're going to be in trouble, because within a minute you're going to become an oak tree. You get a shock. I asked some people in prison one time, some men, how did you define yourself? More as in terms of your race or in terms of your sex? They all said in terms of their being a male. That was the bottom line, being male. More than even their race. Even people who'd suffered in terms of their race, like this bunch of black guys, I remember. And in fact, it was at this one talk, I remember, it was shocking. We talked about karma and how we can, depending on the actions we do, we can become this or that. Because it's not a fundamental, it's not the core of our being. And there was this kind of silence. And this black guy said, you mean I could become a white man? Really shocked him at the core. Because of course he defines himself in terms of his blackness. Because indeed, usually if you've suffered in a certain way, you need to heal yourself in that way. So certainly in this country, generally speaking, because of the race history of this country, we can see a person who might be black has suffered in those terms. Because of their blackness, not because they've got feet or something. People walking around being footists. Oh, you've got feet. No. You understand? So it's reasonable. I can see he was putting himself together in terms of his black maleness. But that was the part that was so shocking. I could become a white man. But I didn't tell him he could become a white woman. That would have even been more shocking to him. That would have been too much to take. So we've got to look at these things, and we've got to see ourselves, how we do define ourselves, and then because of ignorance and ego, we grasp onto it and paralyze it in space. So there's a relative reality, I am that, but all we've got to look at is finally what really is, what part of me defines myself finally. And all Buddha's saying is, it's the goodness in your mind that finally defines you and your potential therefore. That's it. Simple. That's it. That's who you can become. The goodness in you. And why? So simple. Just check how you feel when you feel good. It's good. Check how other people feel when you're nice to them. They feel good too. Check the world when everything works harmoniously. So we all want to be happy. So that's a simple thing. Why not take hold of that one? Why not identify with that one? Because that's the part you can develop. And Buddha would go further and say even it's at the core of your being. Because he is saying that happiness, well-being, the extent of well-being and happiness in your mind is the extent in your mind of goodness. There's a natural relationship between these two. Just an absolutely natural, organic relationship between the presence of goodness and happiness. And equally, there's a natural, organic relationship between, in your mind, the presence of badness and suffering. So simple. Not moralistic, not blame, not guilt, not shame, not done to you. It's something organic and natural. You just have to look. Just check it out. So that should tell us, I don't like suffering. I'd better change my badness. Get rid of it. Oh, I like happiness. I'd better grow my goodness. It's just so simple. That's the way to think, for your own sake. Absolutely, first for your own sake, because you want to be happy, and this is just it's your potential, and that's how you develop it. Get rid of the badness and develop the goodness. So clearly, if you define yourself in terms of your anger, your jealousy, your low self-esteem, your depression, your anxiety, because I didn't ask to get born, I was made this way, it's all in the brain and it's natural and I can't help it, then clearly you're not going to move very far. You're just going to go nuttier by the day. Look at us. So you better change the way you think. So this stuff needs thinking about, It's not just intellectual. We all want to know. We all want to think about these things. So, Buddha would encourage it. Work it out for ourselves. Think it through. Taste it. Make it our own experience. So basically what Buddha's doing is we have to learn to think differently. That's all. It comes down to the mind. Think differently. Change the mind. So right now let's change our mind about dinner. Look, lunch is coming, so we can change the way we think about dinner now. I think it's lunch, isn't it? 12:30, yes. So let's change the way we think about dinner. Let's see how we just do the usual projections. You see this shaped stuff out there, this stuff with an orange colour with, round little circles of it and maybe purple things. You might see little kind of grains of stuff. You might see, green things like leaves and everything. And we put all these names onto it and get all excited. Oh, it's called salad. Oh, it's called bread. It's called butter. Oh, and all our projections, all our neediness, all our hunger and our craving dumps itself onto this stuff, and then we want to shove it in the mouth, because we're convinced it'll make me happy. But it's all just stories. Our mind has made it. And we've got so habitual with that, we give it that power. So that means it's empty. That's all it means. It's empty of existing from its own side as that. We make it that. It's not inherent in it. We make it that. So that means it's empty. So think. Just now, think. Okay, just think. Because it is empty, we can now manifest it in the sky. Imagine oceans and oceans of this delicious stuff. Like, loaves and fishes. Multiply it. Imagine. Use your creative imagination. Just think. Oceans of this delicious food. And imagine we're just going to, we're transforming it with these 3 syllables they talk about representing the body, speech and mind of all the holy beings, enlightened mind. We'll go into this later maybe. We just imagine blessing it, transforming it into this oceans of delicious, radiant, empty, blissful nectar. Just Oma Hung, Oma Hung, Oma Hung. Thinking, so now we imagine the third step is to now offer it. The most important point is to imagine, think, creatively just imagine giving it to others. We imagine all day things. It's called fantasies, and we usually imagine me getting it and I getting it and people being nice to me and giving me things. We love doing imagination stuff. I mean, it's always I. We live in imagination all day about I. So now we're just thinking of doing it for others. Same tool, but we shift the object. It's others. So we imagine offering this food to all the starving people. all the hungry ones, all the poor suffering creatures who have to eat each other and kill each other all the time, all the crazy humans, all the happy humans, all the holy beings, all the Buddhas, all the Bodhisattvas. We imagine all of them pervading space. And then we imagine offering this oceans of food so happily to everyone, giving them everything they need. And then finally we imagine them all experiencing the joy, the delight of receiving it. Lama Sangye Lama Che, Dejen Lama Gedonte, Kungi Jepo Lama Te Lama Namla, Che Pabo. So now, having thought that way, as Lama Zopa says, the bigger your stomach, the better. Now you can go and enjoy lunch, okay? Because you just totally transformed your mind. Instead of following the default mode of attachment, gimme, gimme, you just changed your mind. How amazing. Sown marvellous new seeds in your mind. So practical. So then, that's lunch, okay. So then, where's the schedule? What time's the break? What time's the discussion group? 2:30? 2:30. Okay. 2:30 then. What I want you to do is just grab a group of you, 3 or 4, 4 of you maybe, 3 of you, 5 of you, whatever you think, and sit somewhere and for 1 hour take one or more of the pieces that you've heard and rip it to pieces with the intention of trying to comprehend it. Maybe this one here, how we define ourselves. Mind being not physical, and these qualities and trying to get the sense of we are what we are now, and then seeing how we grasp onto that and how it paralyzes us. And then to try to understand how we have got potential. And then the relationship between goodness and happiness. Just these points. Look into it. And don't just expect answers from each other. Don't just ask the question of somebody and get another answer. Rip it to pieces and discuss it. Because that's how you make it your own experience. And then come up with questions. And then at 3:30 or whatever time it will be, 4 o'clock I think. Yeah. We can have more questions again. And then we can talk about karma after that. Get into the nitty-gritty about karma. How it functions in these minds of ours and how it causes us to be who we are. All of which is again giving us a basis for how to change our minds. Okay, so then we delight in this 2 or 3 hours we've had together, all these thoughts, these concepts that have come up, these seeds we've planted in our mind. May they ripen as quickly as possible in the development of our marvellous potential for our sake and the sake of others. And may compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. Okay. Thanks everybody. See you soon.